There was no circumstance under which I would bear false witness against the president. I was just not willing to lie. They wanted me to be the ham in their ham sandwich because they knew the Mueller report, particularly on Russia, was a dud. It was a goose egg. They had nothing, and they were hoping that I would recharacterize my phone calls.
Roger Stone speaking out for the first time since President Trump commuted his sentence, the longtime Trump associate, accusing the prosecution of trying to get him to lie about the president, calling the judge in his case biased and the system itself fixed. Now, Democrats are demanding a legal review of the commutation. Let's bring Andy McCarthy, former assistant U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York and a Fox News contributor. Judge Amy Berman Jackson, Andy, ordered the DOJ to explain the scope of the commutation. The president wiped out everything except for the conviction in a statement saying, quote, "I commute the entirety of the prison sentence imposed upon said Roger Jason Stone Jr. to expire immediately. I also commute the entirety of the 2-year term of supervised release with all its conditions. And finally, I remit any unpaid remainder of the $20,000 fine imposed." In a column in the National Review today, Andy, you were critical of the judge for even asking for a review of the scope.
Well, I think, John, that it was really more of a political thing than a legal thing. Once she imposed a sentence with a very few important exceptions that aren't relevant here, Roger Stone is not her responsibility anymore. She claims she was making this request on behalf of the probation department to see if the supervised release part of the sentence was still in place. I highly doubt that they were all that curious about it, but I think it does cause people to wonder. It certainly makes me wonder, given the number of terrorists who were pardoned by President Clinton and President Obama, is there a single judge in the United States or a single probation officer, for that matter, who's worried about whether the terrorists are reporting to their probation officers?
Now, Roger Stone does have an underlying medical condition. He is an asthmatic, and when he was speaking with Sean Hannity last night, he thanked President Trump for showing courage to commute his sentence. Listen to what he said.
The most important thing here is the courageousness of the president's act. I know there were many, many, many people who told him in an election year, don't do this. Let Roger Stone wait maybe for a pardon after the election. Sean, I don't think I would have lived that long, not with my asthmatic condition, not with now 60 COVID-19 cases in that prison.
Roger Stone was terrified, Andy, of contracting coronavirus disease, but is that a reason to commute someone's sentence?
Well, I don't think it's a reason to commute the sentence, John, and I don't have a brief for Roger Stone. I think he got leniency, especially when the Justice Department intervened, so that his guideline sentence of 9 years ended up being something more like 40 months when the judge finally imposed it. But at the same time, let's be real. If he were not connected to Donald Trump, the tendency throughout this country from sea to shining sea is to throw the courthouse or the jailhouse doors open on account of coronavirus. So there are hardened criminals being released all over the country, and this guy would not have had a chance of being released simply because he's connected to Trump, which I think is also wrong.
Now, Vermont Senator Pat Leahy wants the Department of Justice to review the commutation, suggesting that if that commutation was traded for a promise not to incriminate the president, it would be a crime. Senator Pat Leahy saying, quote, "Given recently surfaced information indicating that President Trump may have commuted Mr. Stone's sentence in exchange for his refusal to incriminate the president pursuant to your own standard, an inquiry by the Justice Department into Mr. Stone's commutation is clearly warranted." Is it warranted, Andy?
Yeah. Well, I think it's a silly request because if Pat Leahy really feels that way, the Senate can look into that. And if there's anything there, it's a lot more likely that the Senate will come up with it than the Trump Justice Department, right? At least by his lights. So nothing prevents him from following up on that. I would suggest that they probably don't want to have a comparison between the Trump pardons and the Clinton pardons, because I don't think that's going to do anybody any good. So we'll see what they do, but nothing stops him from looking at that if he wants to.
Many of us remember the pardon, the absolute pardon of Susan McDougal back in 2001. Of course, she was a leading figure in the Whitewater investigation. Andy McCarthy, it's always great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks, John.